Unlocked is brought to you by Invincible, a program designed to unlock the potential of people and teams inside your organization. Join companies like Pfizer, Delta, the CDC, Google, and Chick-fil-A, and others in over 116 countries that are currently using this program to increase productivity and develop healthy cultures. Access hundreds of hours of content that is accessible anytime, anywhere. And finally, use real-time data to understand the health of every team inside your organization, which teams are performing and which ones aren't. Then understand the why behind that performance. Get free access to Invincible for 30 days by visiting www.giant.tv/30days.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Unlocked. Today I am talking to Sue Unerman, who is the CTO at MediaCom over in the UK. And CTO, she is not the Chief Technology Officer. We talk about right out of the gate what that means and what it embodies. And so stay tuned for that. We also talk about her book. Now, it's not a new book, but she has some updated data coming into this paperback version of this book here in a few months. And the book is called Belonging, and it's her third book. We talk about her other books and what led up to this book of Belonging and why it is so important right now for all of us to pay attention to. We talk about why belonging is important. We talk about diversity and culture and what that means. And also, why is it taken so long? Like what takes so long for this whole diversity thing to take root inside of our organizations? And at the very end, a very, very cool idea around this cultural fit versus what she says it really should be. It's not about cultural fit, it's about something else. So stay tuned, because here we come. Sue, it is so fun to have you. I don't get many people from your side of the world on my show, so this is a real privilege for me.
Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, you are the CTO of MediaCom, and that you're not the Chief Technology Officer.
No.
So let's talk about that title really quick, because again, we don't see that title around very often either. Tell me about the title. Did you create that title? Did MediaCom create that title? And how did you fit into that title? How'd you land this gig?
So CTO is Chief Transformation Officer. And the truth is, yes, I actually pitched for the role. And often when you meet a Chief Transformation Officer, it's really about digital transformation. But actually at MediaCom, we think that the digital transformation is ongoing and everybody's involved in that. And my role as Chief Transformation Officer is essentially to make sure that our business is ahead of the curve, that we are transforming faster than our competitors, but also that we're helping give our clients advice about how they can transform their business. So if you think about the way that TV viewing has changed over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, so that so many more people are watching it on OTT Netflix rather than watching it on a plugged-in television. If you think about the way that shopping has changed over the last 2 years, so that you expect to be able to buy your goods online, not only in stores, and you expect the customer experience to be as good as the best ever experience that you've had. So we all have those expectations. And my role is to basically help our clients to ensure that they're getting the right advice so that they are able to beat their competition.
Beautiful. I love it. You are very involved in the idea of transformation as far as the workplace is concerned, and what it means to belong in a workplace. In fact, you just have a new book, well, not new, a new version, the paperback version of Belonging is coming out here in a few months. This is actually a book you wrote in 2020 or published in 2020. And you have some new data that comes out with this book. Now, this isn't the first book you've written either.
Nope.
And I think your journey of the books that you have written have led you to this one. So will you
Yes.
talk about that journey a little bit for me, and then talk about why belonging is so, I guess, monumental for you right now in this period of your life and all of our lives?
Of course. So my first book was with an American co-author, actually, a man, friend of mine called Jonathan Salem Baskin, and we wrote a book in 2012 called Tell the Truth: Honesty is Your Most Powerful Marketing Tool. And that book was about the rise of Amazon, online shopping, of Facebook, of Google search and Google reviews, and the impact that had on traditional marketing. Because if the old-fashioned way of thinking about advertising, say you think about Mad Men now, was sell the sizzle, not the steak, in 2012, everybody could find out details about the authenticity of the steak, the provenance of the steak, what other people thought of the steak, the price of the steak, the quality of the steak on their smartphone in a nanosecond. So selling the sizzle wasn't any good anymore. And we wrote a book about how advertising and communications needed to transform. And I actually wrote my second book at the recommendation of my boss, Nick. I was thinking of doing an update actually to Tell the Truth. And he said, no, I think you should write a book about women at work. And originally I wasn't so sure about the idea. And then I thought about MediaCom at the time. And at the time, my CEO at MediaCom was the amazing Karen Blackett, who's now CEO of our holding company, Group M. And her top management team, 4 out of the 5 client-facing people were women, and 3 out of the 4 of us worked part-time. And it was at a very successful, very competitive point in our growth. We are the biggest media company in the UK, and we've been on a trajectory of growth. And I looked around the industry, and then I looked around the wider world and politics and law and education. And were there 4 out of 5 top people were women? No. Were 50% of the top people women? No. Was 1 in 10 of the top people women? Yeah, maybe. And it's just not possible, because women are 50% of the population, that there aren't enough talented women around. So I wrote The Glass Wall with my great friend, Catherine Jacob, and it's success strategies for women at work and businesses that mean business. So it unlocks the glass wall that we think prevents women of talent from getting the jobs that they deserve. And the reason that we said glass wall and not glass ceiling is that the glass ceiling implies that you're at the top of your career. And actually the glass wall can, face you, at any point in your career. And it can even be because your boss has changed. So your career was looking great, and then you got a different boss. And that book was a bestseller. And we gave a lot of talks about smashing the glass wall, and over 150. And a question kept coming up towards the end of the talks. And the talks would mainly be women. And of course, this was in 2016, 2017. And so it was in real life, if you remember what in real life was like. And there would be only, a room full of people, but they would predominantly be women. And somebody would put their hand up and she would say, I've got a question. And it's actually for the organizers of the talk, looks around the room and says, can I just ask, where are all the men? And the organizers of the talk would say, oh, well, this is for the fast track of women, or, well, it's International Women's Day, and so that's why we're having this talk for you, or, this is our women's support group. And then the woman that asked the question would say, if we only talk to ourselves, can I ask how anything is ever going to change? And so from that actually came the thought of the Belonging book. So I'll just flash that up, which is coming out in paperback in May, is in hardback now, in the US and in the UK. And 2 things about it, really. The first thing is that it's clear that there are all sorts of people of talent who are not reaching the top management. It's not just women, it's also, it could be people of color, it could be people with disabilities. It's all kinds of different kinds of people who are being excluded. And so we wanted to write something inclusive from that perspective. But the other point is that we know that there are an awful lot of, men in power who are upset and tired as being characterized as the problem, and actually being defensive about being the problem, and who actually want to champion having a greater sense of belonging, a greater sense of diversity at work. And so this book is also for them. It's also about how to do this if you're unsure about what to do or what to say.
That's powerful. And that's a great angle to take. And I will say, and I'll put it out there, right, as a, middle-aged white male that grew up in the suburbs, I have felt defensive at parts of periods of my life of being the problem. The white male has been coined as the problem of a lot of things over the course of history with privilege and the things that we've had access to. And it's like, yes, we get it. Like some of us get it, right?
Some
of it. I'm be careful there, because there are a lot of people that don't get it, but some of us get it, and we just want to feel empowered with what we can do to help, right? I get that I'm part of the problem, but let me be part of the solution to what is going on here, and part of creating a culture of belonging that I have the power to create, and allowing me that.
We need you to help create that. Otherwise, it's not gonna happen, right?
And I think that alignment needs to be is really critical between both all people of all shapes, colors, sizes, abilities.
And there is, so we have 2 rounds of research, one for the hardback, and then more recently from the third quarter of last year for the paperback. So this is research that I haven't told anybody about yet. So this is exclusive. And there are problems and quite upsetting problems. So we've got the research, it's quant research in the US and the UK. When the book's full of case studies and exercises and examples of how to help. But if I tell you more than 1 in 3 people in the US say that they felt excluded or marginalized at work because of their belief, personal circumstances of identity. But that rises to 47% of 18 to 24s, 49% of moms returning from maternity leave, 42% of Hispanic, Black, African American or Asian, 67% of people registered disabled, 67% of people who are neurodivergent, and 50% of women expecting their first child. And it's just heartbreaking, right? That's millions and millions and millions of people. And this is despite the fact, do you know how much is spent on diversity and inclusion initiatives every year?
I can't imagine. What is it?
7.5 billion.
Globally?
And and I'm a communication strategist by trade. I'm very concerned with return on investment, and it strikes me that there is a lot of activity, but not enough actual outcomes, not enough actual change. You've got 1 in 3 people who feel they can't bring their whole self to work. You've got more than 1 in 3 people who've experienced bias, harassment, or inappropriate behavior at work. And then again, this is one of the biggest figures in all of the research. 82% of women expecting their first child say this in the States. It's awful.
And what does that do not only for them in the workplace, but them in life, right? For the women in our society that, we depend on for a lot of things, both temporally and spiritually and in life and all types of things, right? And feeling that pressure, because I will say, and tell me if you disagree with this in any way, shape, or form, but that men have that expectation of, killing the food, bringing home the food, right? It's that, and that's the identity of the male, is your workplace, of the things you accomplish at job, your job titles, things like that. With women, there's a lot of more that expectation of not only your identity at work, but your identity in the community and your identity at home and what that does. And if we are stifling that growth and that perspective on not only the job front, but on the home front by them going, well, maybe I shouldn't have kids. maybe I shouldn't be a mom because I'm, of this consequence.
Well, and
right?
also we know that a lot of mums have quit the workplace during lockdown and post-lockdown because for all kinds of reasons, and sometimes because they found that their quality of life was better when they were focused on, caring for their kids. Sometimes it was because they just couldn't cope with the stress of taking most of the care in the home. And we know that it's still kind of 4-1. So there's been stats on this. So in terms of how much work gets done by two parents, it's usually 4-1 in favor of women, and that they just aren't getting the support. But again, I stress it's not just about women. It's also young people. It's also people who are different in different ways. And you've got an overall statistic of 1 in 4 people who say that they don't feel like they belong at their workplace. And that's nearly 40 million people in the States. And so if you're in a meeting with 3 other people and one of your lovely colleagues feels like they don't belong, the chances are. And so it's time for action. And I think this book is about addressing the issues head on in a new way, not just by throwing money at the problem, because it feels like there's been a huge amount of money thrown at the problem. There's been training days, there's been away days. That doesn't create change. Everybody has to help create change. And that means everybody has to be aware. And as you say, that means white middle-aged men need to be aware as well of how they can help. And more than one. So we spoke to a lot of people for the book. And obviously it wasn't difficult to find white middle-aged men who were running companies to speak to, because there's quite a lot of them. And more than one of them said, I am so worried about doing or saying the wrong thing. The consequences of me mistakenly saying something wrong are so huge that I wish this initiative well, but I am giving responsibility to my head of inclusion or my head of people in order to deliver it. Look, we all know what happens if you don't think that this is something that your boss is taking personally, right? We all know what that means. And 1 in 3 people in the US workforce think that their leader of the company doesn't take personal responsibility for diversity. And if you think your boss isn't taking personal responsibility for it, then it goes to the bottom of your pile, right? Because at work, we all have a million things to do, right? And they get done in an order, and they get done in an order of what my boss thinks is important first.
And at the end of the day, it's that authenticity. It's like, hey, I believe in this, but underneath, I'm afraid of it. So I'm just going to push it off onto somebody else. Hey, everybody, I'm doing that. We have people doing this. Look, we have people doing this.
Yeah,
and then it's like me off in my, office doing whatever I'm doing. And everybody's going, well, why isn't he in this training, right? Like what's going on with this? So there's a big problem. So what do you think, what would you define, what does belonging at work mean?
So I think belonging is feeling as though you are welcome. It is feeling wanted, and it's feeling respected for your difference. And it's the ability to bring your true self to work. So many people cover. So many people pretend to be what they are not. And it takes an awful lot of effort to do that, right? It's very hard to do your job well when you're also covering and not being yourself. And we even know that 42% of white men in the workplace cover as well. So it's like for me that the whole workplace is designed for a tiny minority of, the people who really thrive in the patriarchy, people who are workaholics, who are hugely ambitious for themselves. And the workplace is designed around that, and it's not designed to bring out the best in everybody. And we're going through a big, huge, enormous transition at the moment, right? We're moving from, certainly in the UK, from full lockdown not that long ago into now hybrid ways of working, where I'm doing meetings now where sometimes people are in the room, sometimes people are calling in for whatever reason. It might be that they've got childcare responsibilities, or they've got just couldn't get in that day. And what we're now facing is what happens next. How do we make the workplace truly inclusive for everybody, so that everybody can contribute, so that everybody knows that they can speak freely, so that everybody is rewarded for what they bring to the workplace, and they don't have to be a certain type of person to get promoted. And as we move into this hybrid way of working, I think we have to be extra careful to be inclusive of it, because you know what the cliche will be. The cliche will be that if you're a bloke, a man, you'll be going, yeah, no, I can be in the office, from dawn till dusk, from 8 a.m. till midnight, whatever you need, boss. And it will be women and mothers who are going, I'm so sorry, I feel so guilty, but I have to get home for 6 o'clock, or I couldn't get in at this time for this. And we'll get that inequality reinforced. I hope that's not the case, but I think we need to be extra mindful of making sure that everybody feels that they belong, or things are going to get worse, not better.
I think you speak some real truth, right? With some of the things about, the pressures of some of the people you've talked to that just say, hey, I'm kind of afraid of this whole thing. Mm. And then one piece of advice I got when I was going through some training that I actually facilitate now in the D&I space is, and my concern at the very beginning, and I call this self-preservation, right? Self-preservation is all about, what am I afraid of losing? What am I trying to hide? What am I trying to prove? We put up these walls sometimes when those fears come in. And a lot of these leaders are experiencing that, right? They're afraid of something, and so they just shove it off and hide, right? So one piece of advice I got when I brought up my concern was, hey, I'm a middle-aged white male that grew up in the suburbs. How am I supposed to go talk to people about this topic? I can't truly empathize, right, with minorities or with disabled individuals or geriatric workers or whatever it is, or diverse or gender, right? Like I am the majority. So, but some of the people in my group that were in the minority groups were saying, just your authenticity and just your transparency about that concern automatically buys you some points. And I've noticed that when I go into facilitate groups, I bring it out and I say, I'm not here to teach you about this. I'm here to facilitate a discussion, because I know that I'm not the one to teach, right? And by having all the voices at the table, meaning we have to have not just the minorities in gender and the minorities in race and the minorities of ability, but we also have to have the majority of the white male there. And that's what you're talking about, right? Is that we need all the voices at the table.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And what you're saying is be truthful, but also listen. And not just listen, but hear. Because some people, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, they listen, but they don't hear. And so listen and hear what people are saying. Because I think, empathy is a word that's used a lot. And empathy is very difficult. I think, we might all think that we're trying to be empathetic, but it can be difficult. And there is also, sometimes there's short-term empathy and long-term empathy. So being sympathetic or empathetic to somebody in the moment versus what might be the better outcome for them in the long term. It's something that it's very difficult to train. I understand that you do train in it and that you have techniques for it, but it's tough, right? It's tough because I love one of the definitions that we've got in the book about the difference between kind of real empathy and kind of false empathy is for anyone who has a pet cat, and that if your pet cat loves you, it will bring you the best possible present that it can think of, which will be a half-dead bird. Obviously, you will be horrified by this, but the cat thinks, my goodness, what better thing could I have brought Skot? So there's too much of that, I think.
Yes, please don't bring me a half-dead bird. Yeah. So I'm good with that. Yeah, that's so true. So tell me, this journey is going to take some time.
Mhm.
You say $7.5 billion is dedicated to D&I training right now globally. Um, why is it so slow? Like, doesn't it seems to me in some of the circles I'm around that people are like all for this. You go on social and it's like this and championing that and
Mhm.
groups about this and recognition of that, but it goes so painstakingly slow. What's up with that?
So I think one of the things is two things that I'd point to. One is that the people who are being, the training is meant to help and the investment in DEI is meant to help. There's diversity fatigue. So they are tired of being asked to be a poster man or woman or person for whatever minority or underrepresented group they're supposed to represent, because they feel it as, and I hear this over and over again from colleagues and people that I speak to, they feel it's performic, they feel that it's token, they feel that it's great, we're doing this for Black History Month, what happens the rest of the year? So I think there is a tiredness. I think also people are frightened to stand up for each other and for themselves. And the issue of allyship. So I had a very good conversation on International Women's Day, just gone actually at Microsoft, about how difficult it is to be an ally, how to be an ally, whether you should be an ally in the moment, or if you are standing up for someone in the moment, whether that means you're taking away their agency, whether you should challenge somebody in the moment. But this is I think two things about allyship. I was are you aware of the EPIC policing program in the States?
Mm-mm.
So it stands for Ethical Policing is Courageous. And it was set up in the wake of the murder of George Floyd by a professor of violence at a university. He came up with the idea of this. And he himself is a Holocaust survivor. And he set up a pilot scheme, which I think ran in New Orleans. And his thinking was police officers are trained to protect themselves and danger of life in an emergency. So they're trained to react with adrenaline and to make sure that nothing, that they don't get shot to defend themselves. But he said nobody trains anybody in that heightened circumstance to stop, to think, to hear from their colleague that maybe they're not doing the right thing. And so he's put together a training program where this very thing happened, whereby at the same time as they learn how to defend themselves, they also learn how to back off. And it struck me that that's rare in senior management training, that you get taught how to coach, that you get taught how to lead, that you get taught how to inspire, but that very rarely do you get taught how to accept that you've made a mistake, how to back down. So I thought that's one thought about it. And I think the other thought about speaking up is that I think there's a debate about whether it's right to do it in the moment or whether it's better to do it privately, because otherwise you put people into backup, humiliate them. The problem is if it's only ever done privately, then the more junior people who witness it don't know that it's happened. And also you don't get into the habit of people challenging inappropriate behavior. But it's tough. As someone who does tend to speak up, I know that it's very tough. And then I also know that I don't get everything right either. And we are all on a journey. We're all on a journey. Nobody is perfect. And owning that. I mean, we seem to work in a workplace now where a senior leader is meant to be the Pope. So they're meant to be infallible. You're really not supposed to challenge your boss. And unless your boss is the Pope, and I'm not going to get into belief or anything like that, then your boss is not infallible. And so it's not impossible that they're getting things wrong. But there is very little openness or acceptance that anyone can own that.
Final thought here about this idea of cultural fit. There's a lot of people that are like looking for the right cultural fit. And you said something really beautiful about this when we were talking before the show. And I was like, we have got to get that on the show because I want people's minds to be blown about this topic,
Right.
as mine was. So I love this thought. Go for it.
So this is my final thought, because I know we're running out of time here, is that a lot of people talk about cultural fit, and cultural fit means looking the right way, going on the right holidays. It means you went to the right school, or you can pretend that you went to the right college or something. And actually that doesn't give you diversity of thought. What gives you diversity of thought is a cultural mix. And from cultural mix comes richness of ideas. It comes competitive advantage. And also it makes the workplace a lot more fun to be in.
So beautiful. Sue, you're awesome. Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
You too, Scott.
Your passion, and especially in a British accent, sounds just that much more smart. So cool.
Brilliant.
So cool having you. Good luck with it. How do people get in touch with you if they want you to speak, if they want to find out more about how you can help them?
So I'm on Twitter at SueU, SUEU. And the book is available at all good bookshops, but of course on Amazon as well. So Belonging by Sue Unerman, Catherine Jacob, and Mark Edwards.
You're a rock star. Thanks, Sue. Have
Thank
an
you.
amazing day. Enjoy your day of sunshine over there in the UK.
Yeah, I know the light's been going very bright, but yeah, it's so unusual. So
yeah, take it for what it is.
Thank you.
1 in 3 people feel excluded at work, and 1 in 4 people actually feel like they just don't belong at all. That's a problem. And as you've probably heard on this show, we talk about the Great Resignation. We talk about how do you retain people. We talk about all types of things. And if people don't feel like they belong, if they don't feel included in the discussion or feeling heard or valued for what they are and what they bring, that's a huge, huge problem. And understanding that all the voices need to be there at the table, that there are people in our environments that can champion these causes with us. And that is important to understand, that we create these allies, that we create these ideas that are going to help us all move forward together. A couple other things besides the 18 stats. I don't know if it was 18. It was a lot of great statistics about belonging and about how there's a gap there that needs to be fixed. Bringing your true self to work. How can we feel safe enough bringing our true self to work? Well, it's being recognized, acknowledged for who we are, what we are, and also valuing the contribution that we bring. Talking about this idea of cultural fit versus really, it's a cultural mix. How do we create a mix, a diverse view of thoughts and opinions and talents and abilities and backgrounds and all these things to give us perspective? Because if we don't have that, then we have tunnel vision. We have blinders on, and we can't see the opportunities that are out there for us because we're just stuck in our own views. So when we create belonging at work, we're creating opportunity for not only our organization and our team, but for ourselves and for the people that work for us and for society as a whole. So thank you, Sue, for being on the show. It was so good having you. And thanks for your sincerity and your passion about this topic. If y'all want to find out more about me, you can go to skotwaldron.com. I've got some information on there about what I do, as well as how I build healthy cultures and teams within organizations. You can like, subscribe, comment on my YouTube channel, where I have a lot of free resources for you, where I also give you some little tidbits of coaching on there about healthy communication and creating healthy cultures at work. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with you on LinkedIn. I would love to build up my audience more there, and I share some great information there as well. So I'm giving out free stuff all the time. So stay connected. Let's do it. It's good to have you on another episode of Unlocked.